They're so much
Well,
fun.
there's just something
There's so
about
much
just
more.
throwing your leg over a machine, like pretty much over an engine,
Oh yeah.
completely open,
It gives you a
and
thrill.
yeah, just hammering that throttle and getting out there in the woods. Oh, gee, oh, guys, don't scare me like that. Oh, wasn't expecting you. Whew. But anyway, I guess now that you're here, might as well let you know that this video you're about to watch is just the replay of the live broadcast I did on my Powersports Enthusiast podcast channel. I figured I'll share these first two. That way you can check it out, see if you like it, and decide whether you want to go over there and subscribe to my channel so you can take part in the live broadcast, be part of the conversation or not. That's entirely up to you guys. Because after all, it is a podcast, and so the main focus of it is to listen on all your podcasting platforms in audio version. Again, the live broadcast is just a way for you guys to join in, take part in the conversation, and let me know your thoughts on whatever the main topic would be. So again, this is just the replay of episode number 1, Are ATVs Going Extinct? I hope you guys enjoy.
Too late to fix them now.
It is. Are ATVs going extinct? Let's talk power sports. Welcome to the Powersports Enthusiast podcast. You are watching Pep Talk Live. If you're joining me for the first time, hey, guess what? We're joining for the first time because this is the inaugural episode of Pep Talk Live on the Powersports Enthusiast podcast. Dan, would you turn that volume down on the computer? Come on now. I have my two associates with me, Seth and Dan. Say hi, guys. Introduce
Hello.
yourself. Yes.
I'm Seth. That's Dan.
Hi, I'm Dan.
My fellow
That's
colleagues in riding crime, correct?
Yep.
So let's talk new machines right now. We're going to start off here with a little bit of news because Kawasaki released 3 new models, and I'm using air quotations here because I don't know how much you guys know about this, but it was a kind of major letdown for me. So it turns out the brand new machines, I don't know if they ever marketed it as brand new though, but their new machines was pretty much the KRX 1000 with electronic controlled suspension. That was it. And it has now a 7-inch touchscreen to control it all.
That's neat.
Well, it's neat, but I think it disappointed a lot of people. So
Yeah, I'd say so.
yeah, I think a lot of people was hoping for more power, and
Power is key. If
Power
you want
is
to
key.
Impress people. Power.
I think that's been the biggest disappointment with everyone in the KRX was the lack of power it has.
If you're gonna make a sport side by side, make it sporty.
You need to make it sporty. It seems like Kawasaki kind of tailored it more towards the technical trail riding stuff. But anyway, so that was kind of a big disappointment there. The Terex, I think everyone was hoping the Terex was going to get a major overhaul and upgrade. They did kind of do. I mean, it has an S model now, which gives it long travel. It went from 8 inches of travel now to 10, which that's 2 inches. So, I mean, I'm sure riding it, it's a big difference. But again, that Arctic Cat Wildcat Trail I just bought, it has 10 inches of travel, and it's in a little 10-inch or 50-inch machine.
And that's not the sport size of what it is.
No, it's
For its size, it should have like double that.
yeah,
Not quite double, but
It's a pretty big 4-seater.
it is a big 4-seater. It's 60 inches wide, and the wheelbase width isn't quite as wide because they're advertising the long travel as being 55-inch, width the wheelbase. Then you got that extra inches there for the fenders and stuff. So it's not real wide, but still it's got more width. You think they could get more than 10 inches out of it for a long travel. But I'm sure the Terex lovers are going to love that extra 2 inches of travel. I'm sure it probably makes a noticeable difference. So,
Did you say the long arm, the S is shorter base?
no. The S version is the long travel
The long
suspension for the
travel.
Terex.
So
And that is in both the 2-seater and the 4-seater. So I guess they're both getting that. So that's the upgrade for that.
Probably make it good for crawling over stuff, but other than that, probably wouldn't make too much of a difference.
Yeah, and again, it goes back. I think all the Kawasaki owners were hoping to have more power, hoping for a bigger engine in the Terex than the old and kind of outdated and worn out 800 that's in there.
So what's the weight of like the Polaris and stuff? Because you look at the Terex, it's 1900 pretty much.
It's heavy. Well, if you're talking about 4-seaters, the Razor 4-seaters are buses. So they're up there in weight.
Huge.
But they're pushing out a lot more horsepower too.
Yeah.
But anyway, speaking of Polaris, Polaris also introduced the new Razor Trail and Razor S900. So it's got some updates. It's pretty much built kind of on the Pro platform, or at least the new body style. I don't think it's the Razor Pro per se, because it's got a little bit different looks, but it's the updated Razor looks. And it's up there pretty good. It's pushing out, what do I have here on my notes? It is pushing, I think, 75 horsepower and a 50-inch machine. And that's out of a 900 class engine. Yeah, 875 cc, 75 horsepower. Of course, it's 50 inches wide, has a 79-inch wheelbase, so it's nice and short. The closest competitor would be the Maverick Trail, and it only pushes 75 horsepower out of its 1,000. So that's pretty good. For a 50-inch machine, yeah, I'm partial to 50-inch machines.
We know.
You guys know that. That's pretty good.
No, honestly, you really don't need a lot of horsepower in a small machine like that. It's kind of overkill.
No, it's probably going to... And it has 10 inches of travel and 11 inches of ground clearance. So that's not bad.
No, not for what you're getting.
No.
That's
So
way better.
you guys have really clammed up since I started recording. You guys know that. I think you guys are camera shy.
It's called
Maybe a little
stage
bit.
fright.
It's just stage fright. We should have done a practice run through. I just bumped the table. That's why I don't have the camera sitting on the table. So you guys got to help me out here. We're supposed to be fun and entertaining. So new news. That was pretty much it. Oh, the KRX 1000. I did want to talk a little bit about this new electronic suspension control. It has, like all the others, Polaris and that, and that has normal, firm, and soft settings. The normal is, of course, for your everyday riding. The firm is for your high speed, and the soft is for your slow technical stuff.
Me and Dan rode in the Dynamics version of, what year was that? 2017?
I think it was a 2018.
2018?
I think.
That was the
Polaris.
Razor when you guys went along
yeah,
I think it
to
was 2018.
when I demoed the X4 for the very first time.
Yeah, what year's your X4?
18.
So it would have been 18.
It would probably the same year.
Yeah.
You didn't get the X4
that
long
was
after that.
an amazing ride. So if it could even somewhat compare to that, I would be like immensely impressed.
Yeah, and I think it's what's upsetting everybody. That was clear back in 2018. Kawasaki's now just kind of playing catch up a little too late.
Yeah,
you
way
know.
too late.
Yeah, way
No.
too late.
I didn't get to drive the regular turbo with either the Fox or the Walker Evans, so I don't know how it compares to that. But I mean, we tried the soft mode, the hard mode, the sport, and all that, and the soft definitely had its perks. The hard had its. You really didn't need it unless you're
I
riding on
just
the
say
road or
this,
something.
when we
but
demoed it, we demoed it.
yeah,
You demoed it.
We
Dan-
really tried it
Dan's
out.
like, all right, I am pushing this
It's-
thing, and I said,
Ma-
I'm gonna try and ride along and not die.
we may have
And
had
we
the guy
did it.
may have had the guy point at us a couple times.
Not
But then,
only
we
did
did get yelled
Dan
at.
leave a white impression in the floorboard plastics from pushing the pedal so hard, Seth was white knuckled the whole time, and
There's permanent knuckle grips on that.
first thing the guy said, don't take it out of two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. First thing we did, took it out of four-wheel drive.
That's
And
the
we
way you do
immediately
power
put
slides.
it back in four-wheel drive
Yeah.
because
After a good
it
full-
was scary.
It was not a good idea to have it in two-wheel drive for very long.
Poor Jason was like 2 cars behind us.
I was in the X4, or was that when I was
You
in the
might-
general?
I think you were in the general.
I was in the general.
Yeah.
Did not like
The
that.
guy behind me was in the X4,
Yeah.
and I feel bad for him because I peppered him a lot.
Yeah, we roosted him pretty good.
Yeah, I was a couple cars back, and I think I was getting hit by rocks you guys were slinging at me.
Oh,
Yeah.
trust me. Well, that big old nice hill incline that comes up out into the top of the thing out of the creek, we hit about 45 by the top of that hill. And let me just tell you, the suspension works pretty good.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Pretty good. Oh, come on. But the X4 with the Walker Evans works phenomenally, too. I
Most
mean,
definitely.
It's probably the best 4-seater I've ever jumped in. So yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
jump
and
it
that-
quite
and that
often.
X4, like you said, you've actually tested it. Where some people were like, they baby it, which is fine. but-
I drive my X4 like it's a sport machine.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
You guys have seen my videos. If you check my other channel out, Appalachian Mountain Riders, my main channel, you guys can see the ride videos. I drive her like a sport.
Oh my,
I'm
yeah.
hammered down and hitting
definitely.
jumps and whoops and
How big was that jump over there? Was it New Lost Trails we went to that had that track? Or
that.
was it
No, that was Majestic Trails.
Majestic Trails?
They
They
had
had
the
a
tabletop.
big old tabletop in there, and he cleared it. So
Yep.
Videos are on my other channel again, Appalachian Mountain Riders. Shameless plug there.
We had dirt bikes not making that where the X4.
And I
was.
can't. There's a bunch of dirt bikes up, and they were just kind of.
It's because they were
Yep.
scared. That
Yeah,
shows
they
you
were-
how impressive.
I
that
looked at
X4 was.
Seth and Dan, and I said, "Hey guys, watch this. Keep an eye on their faces." And I went around that track, put that old pedal down, and oh, the X4 did soar.
Yes,
Oh.
it did.
So that was a good time. I want to make a trip back there sometime.
Yeah, I do too.
Most definitely.
So that's pretty much it. The KRX 1000 with the electronic controlled suspension, MSRP $24,399. Prices are getting ridiculous. That's why I'm not a fan of all this electronic crud they're putting in these now.
Agreed.
And that's exactly why I bought the old Wildcat Trail, because it's plain Jane, simple. I don't have a bunch of expensive stuff to go wrong and fix.
When you get more computer stuff involved, the more things to go wrong,
And
and the harder to fix.
And the higher the price goes up.
Did you say $24.99 for the electronic version?
Yeah, which I guess in lieu of the turbo models and stuff, that's probably not a real awful bad price.
I think it's kind of a bad price. I mean, you got the turbo, any turbo, either the Can-Am or the Razor, they're pushing 160 something horsepower. They're fun. You get the KRX is like 115. So,
and that's the thing, you can get a Polaris Razor turbo for a lot cheaper.
Yeah,
and have a lot more power.
$19,900 for 2021.
Yeah,
it was
the
25.
Suspension may not be as fancy and as nice and as plush, but still,
yeah,
you're getting a lot more power, and it's just as capable and just as fun to drive.
So I mean, to compare it to the other sport ones, and now I know that the Can-Ams are pretty expensive, the turbo models and those, or even I don't even know what the 1000s. They don't have a 1000, do they? They got a 900.
But the
Mavericks?
The Mavericks, the 1000, yeah.
In the sport?
Yeah, they have the Sport 1000R in just the Sport, not the X3, not the Maverick X3, but the regular Maverick Sport 1000R. It's 100 horsepower, naturally aspirated.
So, I mean, there you go.
You just like your turbos.
I do. They got cool whooshing sounds and everything else.
Yeah, I was always the guy that said turbos are pointless around here, and what do I do? Go slap one on my Pioneer 500.
Pioneer 500.
First turbo Pioneer 500 in the world. Thank you.
Come on. Pioneer 500 turbo.
Yes, 500 cc's, actually 475 cc's of Fury, now turbocharged.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty much all the news I have for that segment. So let's dig right into the main topic here. Are ATVs going extinct?
No.
I was just going to say, Seth, being our expert dirt bike rider, because
I wouldn't say expert.
I was going to say that this is all we got. I mean, Dan, I've seen you wreck more dirt bikes than I've seen you ride.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, I've owned a little bit of everything.
That is true, but let's just hear your take on it first, Seth. I didn't quite hear that the first time. Do you think ATVs are going extinct?
I'll put it more calmly this time. No.
No.
It depends. I mean, everybody likes side by sides now because you can ride together. But four wheelers, I mean, look at all the four wheelers are coming out with these huge 4-wheel drive ones. I mean, they're just as fun. I know a couple of buddies of mine just bought Grizzlies. Those things are the funnest things to drive ever. I just rode one today for a couple hours. That is the funnest thing I've did in a long time.
That's I love the Grizzly, and that's the thing about the Grizzly. It's not the biggest.
Nope.
It's not the most powerful.
It's got good power. I'm impressed with it. It's
for the 550 being a single cylinder.
Yep.
The thing with the Yamaha single cylinders being it's still a pretty big bore. They've got that low end torque. So off the line, they are snappy, which makes it feel like you have a lot more power than what you actually do.
Yep.
And for East Coast riding here in the woods like we have, it's a blast.
Oh, yeah.
It's a blast. Again, going back to the Articat Trail I just bought, that thing's the same way. It's a 700 twin, 65-ish horsepower, which nowadays in the scheme of things doesn't seem like that much. But in the package you have, that much horsepower, it is a blast on the trail.
I have a question for you. I remember you were looking at the CF Motos, and what would you prefer to buy? Would you still prefer the CF Moto over a Grizzly?
I don't know, because I had yet to actually ride a CF Moto.
Have you seen those in person? The CF Motos?
The new ones? Not the new ones.
They are absolutely huge.
They are huge. I was looking at the 2-ups as well.
A guy in town had one. It was the 2-seater version. And, with the plastic seat in the back. It was an 800, and it was bigger than most Can-Ams. I was like, wow.
And Can-Ams are quite a big fool.
Yeah, and I said, that thing is huge. And the guy goes, yeah, but it has so much power, it's ridiculous. But I don't know. He said he loved it. Wouldn't trade it for anything else.
If you're talking about a fun factor, I would say ATVs are by far
they're
so much fun.
Well, there's just something about just throwing your leg over a machine, like pretty much over an engine.
Oh yeah,
completely open.
It gives you a thrill.
Yeah, just hammering that throttle and getting out there in the woods. And that's why I was debating getting a 4-wheeler again, is because I missed that. There's no other feeling in the world. Even think motorcycle, like a street bike wise. it's a completely different feeling when you're doing 40-50 through the woods than you're doing 40-50 on a paved highway.
Oh my, yeah.
It's a completely different feeling.
And the thing with side by sides that you're missing out on is agility of being able to maneuver through woods and trails and being able to find trails and make trails. It's not near as easy as with a side by side.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
You missed the whole body language
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're strapped into a seat side by side with harnesses on or seatbelt on.
There's nothing like going 65-mile-an-hour down a dirt road and leaning real far to the left so you can make the turn. You
Or-
can't do that in side by side.
Well, in Dan's case, leaning real far to the left and then getting road rash when you lose it. I've seen that a time or two, Dan.
Just maybe a couple times.
So, Seth, you think that ATVs, they're here to stay? They're not going extinct?
my answer is no.
No.
If
So-
you didn't get that already.
If you didn't get that already from the first resounding no, that hopefully nobody's listening with earphones on any of the
yeah,
replays.
I
or
feel bad for them people.
people.
Be all right.
Yeah. So, Dan, do you concur? You disagree with Seth?
Nah, I kind of agree. I mean, they're not really dying. It really all depends what state you're on. Like, I know up in Canada, there's a guy I watch on YouTube. For side by sides, it's really hard. It's just nothing but swamp, and
Muskeg.
you got 3 inches of grass that you can ride on top of. You hit the gas and you sink 4 feet. So it's four wheelers are definitely the way to go up there because you get a side by side stuck. I've watched one video that goes on for an hour trying to get 3 people out of the same.
Just
spot.
trying to get them out of the hole.
They got like 50 or 60 people in his rides, so you get a couple side by sides and the rest are four wheelers. And the side by sides are always getting stuck. I mean, it's just nonstop. So try to get them out is one thing, but
I've seen a lot of dirt bikes big, like real big in different countries too. That's a huge thing. A lot of channels I've watched with dirt bikes is people have like groups of 20 going out on rides, whereas we're all
Dirt bike guy here. We're talking ATVs on this one. We'll bring up dirt
What
bikes
about
in another
two
topic
wheels?
later on. Okay, we'll save that for
No,
later
no,
on.
but
Now,
two
come on.
But I mean, like we live in Pennsylvania, so I mean, you get a lot of farm people, and you see a lot of farm people either using mules or
John Deere's.
yeah,
Gator.
John Deere's, Gators, or four wheelers to herd their cows. You don't see them with side by sides. Like I don't consider a mule and stuff like that really a side by side. It's more of a a farm vehicle than anything. But so to me, they use four wheelers for specific things more around here than if you go to let's say a poker run or something like that. There's 500 side by sides and maybe 50 four wheelers. I mean, it's
And that's really what brought this question to my mind. If you go out riding on a trail system, the side by sides outnumber the ATVs, 10-1.
I would say probably 10, 15 years ago, it'd probably be a whole different story too.
Yeah. And I actually did
So
a
it's
little
kinda sad.
research for this topic. Now, I was trying to get actual sale numbers between ATVs and side by sides. The problem with that is they're combined. And so all the numbers I have for you are just estimates, best guesses. And I can only go back as far as I think 2008. UTV sales were 270,000 units were sold in the U.S. of UTVs. Then again, this is an estimate because they're all combined in with motorcycles and everything else. 2017 or 2015, that jumped up to 400,000 side by sides UTVs sold. So that's a pretty good jump there. Whereas ATVs in 2015, I couldn't get back any farther, estimated was 230,000. So about half. So that's really, you think about it, you sound, well, that's a big difference. That's 200,000 machines, but really that's pretty much a 2-to-1 ratio for every 2 side by sides. There's 1 ATVs.
Yep.
So it's not like
It didn't die. It's just it's been outnumbered some. but
It's
not
been-
dead.
outnumbered so ridiculously that it just seems like when you're out there riding in public riding spots that you don't see many ATVs. It's not that they're not out there. They're just completely
So if
outnumbered.
you want to say they're going extinct, no.
No. And I agree. That's
Getting
my
maybe
answer.
closer to the endangered side.
Maybe
but not- definitely
endangered,
not
but
extinct.
not extinct yet. And well, you're talking about the CF Moto. One of the reasons why I was looking at CF Moto is they're really stepping up their game.
Big time.
oh yeah,
You
they
didn't
went,
hear about 'em
they
several
went
years
from
No.
ago.
nothing
Well-
to something.
What you did hear about them several years ago, we're talking back 2008, 2009, the quality just wasn't there.
They were a China brand that you could buy off of Amazon basically at the
And
time.
They were breaking down, parts were hard to get, but they have really kind of, especially I think starting 2018, 19 is when they kind of went through the reflash, we'll say, or the rebrand, whatever.
They rethought some things.
Yeah, and the quality just went through the roof now. And from what I see looking at forums and stuff, you hardly ever see any complaints about CF Moto owners now. it's all pretty
That's
much
surprising.
good things. So their quality has really shot up.
Well, was it Majestic we went to? Two of those guys had CF Motos.
They had CF
Yep.
Motos. One had the Trail, and was the other one
And
the
the
900 or 800?
The one
I
with
can't
the
remember what
900,
it
he blew
was.
the rear end out of it, right?
Yeah, he blew the rear diff.
It kept up with us through the ruts, through the mud. He jumped it. He did the same track. I mean, it wasn't near as good, and it didn't have as much travel as your X4, but you also had your Walker.
I had the Walker
and
Evans,
everything
yeah.
else on it. His was all stock on. I don't know what it did have for shocks. Just
I-
stock shocks.
Yeah,
think.
It
I
didn't
don't know
look
if
like
I.
much. I can tell you.
No, it was probably just your plain Jane, what you would expect on a stock machine.
And
So
they weren't. It wasn't bad at all. It was. I mean, he kept up, and he wasn't sore at the end of it. And he was an older fella. I mean, he wasn't super old, but he was, I assume, in his 40s. But
mhm.
I mean,
he did
it's-
beat us in the drag race.
Jason's
So.
almost
he did
40.
do that.
We
So-
don't need to talk about that, Seth. Cut it out. I'm not almost 40. I still have a couple years to go.
He's not great yet.
That's
I'm
2.
I'm
Give
only
it a year.
28, Seth. I'm only 28. I mean, look at this
Plus 10.
handsome, devilish, good looks. You can tell I'm only 28, right?
Run.
Luckily, I'm farthest away from the camera, so I'm the hardest to see here.
We could step back.
no,
It's
no,
not
stay
right.
it, stay it, stay it.
Where's the
stay it.
spotlight,
So-
guys?
But yeah. So I mean, yeah. Back to the 4-wheeler thing. I mean, another thing I've noticed a lot with the 4-wheelers is people every 2 or 3 years get rid of their side by side, get a new side by side, trade their side by side, buy another one. 4-wheelers, people buy them and keep them. They don't sell them because their resale value is not as much as a side by side. You could buy a side by side 1 year for 19 grand, turn around and sell it 5 years later for 15 grand,
Mhm.
and still get almost what you made out of it and have all that enjoyment. You get a 4-wheeler for 9 grand, drive it off the lot, try to sell it, you get maybe
5, baby.
maybe out of it.
Maybe.
So I notice a lot of people keep them, and I mean, they don't break as much as the UTVs because
You think maybe some of this would play into part too if people buying 4-wheelers aren't trying to push them as hard as somebody in a side by side. You know, there's that confidence that comes between sitting in a seat and having a seatbelt on and a roll cage, which you don't have
Your
in a
average
4-wheeler.
driver that's not real experienced, like, oh, this is a car. I got this.
Yeah.
Whereas a 4-wheeler, there's a lot more that goes on, a lot more control involved.
Like we were talking about before we started recording here of a certain brand. We're not going to mention it because I'm going to save that for a whole nother topic. People are buying these machines because they're so popular. They have no experience in driving one whatsoever or maintaining one. And then they're wondering why you're always seeing people say, well, why is this broke? Why is that broke? This thing's a piece of garbage. Well, maybe if you learned more about it, you know, so that might tie into something too. But
key thing's maintenance. I mean, there was a guy in town. He bought a side by side. I won't say what it is. He run it, replaced wheel bearings every 300-400 miles in it. He was consistently mudding it, doing everything else. Never greased them, never maintained it, never did anything. It just destroyed it. And then he got these new wheel bearings that were greasable and everything else. And he's had, I think, like 1,300, 1,400 miles on them so far since I've talked to him. And he hasn't had an issue with it since then because he learned that he needed to start greasing his stuff.
Oh, look at that.
He hasn't had an issue with it. Instead of spending you how much money for every 300 miles for wheel bearings, you got
Danny, just so you know, there is a Dalton on here now. Says, sup, Danny? Commenting. You're supposed to be paying attention to these comments. You're not even looking.
Yeah.
But that's okay. You're engaged in the conversation. You're right there on the side, Seth.
I see.
Seth is very, very, very tech savvy. I mean, I can't believe he's not the one running this show and got me all set up.
I thought about it, but I thought it was too easy.
So-
Complex Legends now joining us. So if you're just joining us, again, we are talking about our ATVs going extinct.
No.
Thanks for that again.
Sorry for yours,
Seth.
folks.
But anyway, that's pretty much been the general consensus from all three of us is they're not going extinct. It's just the sales, they are so
They're going
out.
downhill a little.
Yeah. I'm sure sales have definitely suffered due to UTV sales. And there's just so many side-by-sides out there. You just don't realize that there are still a good amount of 4-wheelers out there trucking around.
Another thing about the topic was I've noticed a lot of 4-wheelers, they kept the same traditional things for years. And now that the side-by-sides are so far out and so far advanced, now the 4-wheelers are starting to redesign. Like I know Polaris, they just come out with their, was it Scrambler?
I was
It's,
gonna-
what, 64 inches?
The
60 inches?
Scrambler and the Outland, or not the Outlander, the
So-
Sportsman S that has the long travel. They're 64-inch wide and
Yeah.
a
Holy cow.
4-wheeler.
And
That's insane.
they are a beast. I think they're what, like 90 something horsepower? They're a lot of horsepower.
They're up there.
That's a bit
they're-
much for a 4-wheeler.
Well, the thing is,
Can-Am has 89 horsepower.
but the thing with those is they now have the suspension to handle that. And guys that I know that have rode those say they just ride amazing. I mean, that extra suspension is just incredible on a four-wheeler.
Side-by-side blogs, I think, were the first ones I watched that demoed any of that. And they jumped it. They did everything with it. And it's so smooth looking. Like, it looks like you're in a side-by-side, but without the roll cage.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, wow.
Yeah. Guys said they're not the best for like trail riding like we have here because that extra length, it takes a long to get
you lose
used
agility
to.
when you start getting
yeah.
the side to the
But
I feel like they were
side-by-sides.
designed more for like the CNN racing or CCN or whatever the heck that's called, like the cross country racing, through the
what
through
do
the
they
woods
call
racing
that?
and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Because I mean that kind of stuff is what that I think, Polaris is more leaning towards sport everything, like
Did
their
you just have a
utility.
Brain fart,
I
Seth.
did.
Big brain fart.
Yeah.
Their utility four-wheelers are even more sporty now than most sport quads. So I mean, it's
So it's something that just popped in my mind too. I didn't even think of it beforehand. That probably plays a part into the sales is demographic too. Like where are they located? Like I bet you in this area we still see quite a few ATVs and compared to side by sides.
yeah.
But I bet you if you go out west, like West Coast with dunes and stuff, I think that's probably prominently side by sides now.
my.
You have the guys still out on their sport ATVs, I'm sure, still ripping out there in the dunes. And I think that's probably what's helped contribute to the UTV sales just soaring so high above ATVs is just the demographic,
Yeah.
and that's so
It's not
popular.
just our area that you're looking at, our trails. There's so many different types of riding.
And the dune scene has just grown exponentially. It has, I think, a lot bigger following and crowd as far than it does, like the Hatfield McCoy riding scene, because it's just so popular. So I'm sure that plays a part in it too.
So Hatfield McCoy, it was nice to have a little bit smaller machine. I mean, we had so many tight turns in there that with a big side by side, it would have been rough.
Yeah, it would have been. So
we made turns in one turn which I mean, granted, some of the places we went, I seen a lot of 4-seaters like at Can-Ams and Razors. Like there was a lot of those, more than the 2-seater versions, and their turning radius is like the worst. I mean, they were 5-point turns on Jason's little 500 was.
Oh yeah,
I just
right up around and away it went.
Here,
that makes it a pain when you're going on trails like that.
Gabriel just said here they need to make a Talon trail. A Talon in a 50-inch machine with that power plant with
Would
the
be a
dual clutch
beast.
transmission, that thing would be awesome. That would rip.
Come on, Honda. Come on.
Well,
they're just starting out, so I'm going to give them credit. They already got a really good fan base. It seems like they're, what was it? You looked up the specs. What was that? Number 4 on the list or something like that?
Yeah, I think it
4 or
might have
5?
been even 3 or
So
4. It wasn't too bad.
It wasn't very low on the list. It was Can-Am Polaris, then the Terex. The
Terex was third.
Then
on the one website.
The Honda Talons. I mean, that's
on Seth's 3 minutes of research he did right before we started.
Maybe Wikipedia.
yeah, who knows?
Hey, Wikipedia
Google.
is a respectable source, right? You can always trust in Wikipedia.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
totally. But I think in a 50-inch machine it'd be great. I think it's just a little underpowered and under-designed for the 64.
I want to see
So
Yamaha put the new RMAX 1000 motor in a 50-inch machine, trail machine. I want to see them put the 850 in a Grizzly.
They just
Come
did
on.
out with
Weren't
the
they
RMAX
supposed to
not
do
too
that?
terribly long
If
ago.
Yamaha put that 850 in a Grizzly, their Grizzly sales are going to soar because that's what
they'll be competing.
guys
with,
want.
Polaris
bring the
and stuff
ATVs
like
back, baby.
I might contest. There'd be people selling their Wolverines to buy a Grizzly 850 Grizzly, and I can guarantee there'd be people that have moved to Can-Am and Polaris going back to Yamaha if they put that 850 in a Grizzly.
Well, like that brings that thrill factor up that much higher because you get all this power in that size of machine.
And here's another thought just went into my brain. I think the reason why we probably don't see ATV companies doing it with their ATVs is liability. You think, the more power and stuff you're putting in an ATV, the more liability or liability they have. And it probably goes clear back to the whole 3-wheeler scene of the late 80s and people suing and
the Quadzilla 500s. I mean, they quit making those because of people suing the company because they were getting killed and stuff. I mean,
Honda and Yamaha tend to take a conservative side towards power anyway. Probably partly due to that. And plus, I mean, the less power something has, obviously, the more reliable it's going to be.
Yeah, most likely.
So,
I mean, in all reality, If
man,
you
that-
buy a 4-wheeler that has 100 horsepower, let's say, it's a little exaggerating, maybe a little bit, but you go out and you total it, you have no right to sue the company you bought the 4-wheeler
No.
from. It's
No.
like,
And don't tell me you're going to buy that machine saying, "Oh, I'm not going to use that 100
Oh, yeah,
horsepower,"
I
because
wanna
you know
use this for a little putting machine.
you know
local
very
teen
well
rolls
you're going
100
to use all that
horsepower
horsepower.
4-wheeler down the road because he doesn't know how to drive it. Oh, family sues dealership. It's like, why? That's their fault. I mean,
So here's an unrelated question that's sort of related. They bring back 3-wheelers.
Oh,
Would that be awesome or not?
It would be awesome, but once again, they're gonna probably run into a huge issue.
I'm not gonna lie. There's a company that's already doing that. They take dirt bikes, they convert them into
They
3-wheelers,
can, yeah, they
Well,
convert.
that's
and they're
conversion
basically
kits.
bringing back the 3-wheeler because I've kept up on them a little bit. I'm not sure the company brand name. Don't quote me on that, but I've known they're backed up right now, and people are buying brand new dirt bikes, sending them over to them, having them convert them into 3-wheelers and everything else. And their sales, last I watched one of their videos, were through the roof. They were backed up a couple months waiting on stuff. I mean, it's people want them.
And you think about the leaps and bounds that have been made suspension-wise on machines nowadays.
Back then, in the 3-wheelers, the tires was the suspension.
Yeah, you had the solid axle, stiff suspension. Those things rode like tanks. You know, it's no wonder they rolled easy. But you have amazing shock companies now that
That and the technology that goes into them, that's going to help so much with the 3-wheelers. I mean, they could really, I think, explode with that.
Yeah,
maybe.
they've figured out suspension almost to a T. I mean, you can only make suspension so good, and then someone's going to figure out how to push it even further and further. I mean, in all reality, most of sport quads or sport UTVs for what we do around here are plenty for like suspension and stuff. But there's always someone that's going to find the limit to keep pushing them harder. Instead of hitting a 4-foot whoop section, they're going to hit a 6-foot whoop section and expect it to go.
yeah.
But
Gabriel says that the Talon motor in a Rikon would be in the same boat as the 850 and a Grizzly.
yeah,
That would be
Icon again.
that's Honda's one 4-wheeler.
I think if they were to keep that, I had a friend that he had a Honda, had a little thumb shift throttle or shift gauge on it. It's electric, like the Honda Talons, basically. You might as well say, or the Pioneers.
Mhm.
I thought they were cool. So if they took the Honda Talon motor and left the transmission and everything set up like sequential, that would be
Mhm.
ideal for a 4-wheeler. I think the sequential like transmissions and stuff would be great. The belt drive 4-wheelers, people use them for work and everything else, and they're always burning belts up and they're expensive to fix.
Which, Dan, that just leads a perfect segue
Dun, dun, dun.
into what next month's topic is going to be. So I'm going to drop that right now. Next month's topic, we will be talking about CVT versus gear on gear. We are going to look at the pros and cons of each, and we are going to see if we can determine which is better. Any thoughts? Nope. Save it. Save it for the next month's podcast.
Dirt bikes.
Dirt bike. We'll have to get some dirt bike conversation in here for these guys too. I'm not a dirt
least
bike
a
guy.
little.
You know what you need to buy now?
What?
You need to buy a 3-wheeler so we can experience. Well, I haven't ever experienced one. He has, but I have never have.
Or you just buy one that I can use.
I could do that. They're expensive though.
You've
Get
been
a
saying
350X.
you've been saying you're going to buy a side by side for what, 5 years now,
Yeah, something like that.
something like that.
It's gonna happen this year. I promise. I promise.
So, anyway, wrapping up here. Any closing thoughts?
Ooh, we got some comments.
I drove a couple of the ranchers with the foot shifts in them, and they actually got really good power. I mean, they're nice. They don't have a clutch or none of that other stuff. They're just like a normal utility quad, and they got decent power.
See, we'll bring that up in our CVT versus gear on gear conversation next month. Tease a little bit right now. It seems like when you have a gear on gear machine, it takes less power to feel as powerful.
Yeah.
You don't have as much
True.
power loss as you do through
Yeah.
the CVT.
Yep.
So we'll have to look at that for next month. Go from there. So you guys, any closing thoughts? ATVs?
ATVs are
They're here to stay, I
Thrill.
think. I think they're
they're a thrill.
Yeah, they're starting to bring, like I said, they're starting to bring back the ATVs. I've noticed, like, Polaris, I think Can-Am had something going on that I read up on for one of their 4-wheelers. And you got, the Grizzly, they've been reworking theirs for the last, 2-3 years?
well,
now?
they went back. Got rid of the 708 Subaru power plant and went back to the tried and true 686, which I think was a very smart move.
Yeah. More reliable, and everyone seemed to like it more. But, we'll see what happens. Like I said, that'd be a good thing for a Honda.
Yeah, and that's exactly what they said here about that for the foot shift too, is that it's a torque monster in first gear, and it's a thing you can do with gear on gears and having them extra gears. So
I personally like gear and gear.
Right.
Well, again, you're a dirt bike guy.
I'm a dirt
What's a
bike.
DCT?
Dual clutch transmission. That's what the Honda Pioneer has, like what my 1000 had, where you
I
have the
think
dual
that's quite
clutch.
nice.
It shifts so smooth
Yes.
because it's not disengaging the clutch, switching gears, re-engaging. It's the next gear is ready to go. So
Wait,
it just
wait,
pretty
Aren't we
much.
supposed to save this topic?
We can talk a little bit about that,
Have you heard?
and it
anything?
just seamlessly switches.
Have you heard anything about Can-Am developing one?
Now I saw that. I haven't heard anything about Can-Am developing a DCT, so I'll have to maybe research into this
Yeah, I'll
for
have to do some
next
work on
month's
that.
conversation. But again, next month's topic: CVT versus gear on gear. We'll look at pros and cons of each. I'm sure there's some good conversation there. I don't
There
know.
should be.
I'm still debating on if we do this debate fashion or if we just have a
Debate would
general
be so
conversation.
fun.
That would be fun. Of course, we'll have to be official and have one guy one way, one guy another way, a moderator.
Just so that I'm not on the bad side, I'll be a judge.
Oh, so you want to put Dan and I together, huh?
Yeah, I think that's fair. You guys know way more about side by sides than I do.
He wants to be the judge,
Yeah.
so that means we got to get him one of them old judge wigs from.
Get
like,
him a
way
judge
back.
wig,
Yeah,
that
I'll
the
wear it. I
grovel,
mean-
whatever that's called.
If he wants to be the judge, he needs one.
I could see you with white curly hair.
Were you thinking that thought?
And on that thought,
Uh.
in that picture, Seth, make sure you turn, look at the camera. If anybody is good at Photoshop,
Do not
make sure
Photoshop me.
you Photoshop him with the judge's wig.
Photoshop a dirt bike on
Post that up on
somehow.
my Appalachian Mountain Riders Facebook page, so we can all gawk at that for next next month's podcast.
You got one vote. General conversation.
General conversation, no bashing. That's probably a good idea. You guys might get violent. Dan and I might get violent. We're back and forth.
Never know.
We're so violent people.
Maybe we'll add just a little bit of.
We got our
Debate.
own likes.
We could. The thing is, well, no, I'm gonna stop right there. I'm not gonna say anymore. I don't want to spoil it for next month.
This is hard.
So,
But yeah. So
anything else to add before we close up this first inaugural Pep Talk Live
It was fun.
podcast? Thank you guys for coming. I enjoyed having you here. You guys still were so stiff. We're gonna have to learn to relax some more.
We'll get there.
I mean, we are goofing off and full, and as soon as I hit that record button, you guys are like, "Oh,
if you made that thing invisible, I think
we
we'd be all
We
right.
can't make the camera invisible."
Yeah, we could hide it somewhere.
I can do this.
Well,
the
see,
whole time.
Well, see, here, get your hand down. See, here's the thing. This is a podcast, so most of the people listening to this are going to be listening to it on podcasting platforms and not actually watching the video. So I would imagine, because this is tailored as a podcast to go out to an audio
Yeah.
audience and not really visual. This is just kind of a bonus to have it here on YouTube as well. So just think about that for next time when we're recording this. People are listening. And
Don't worry, we'll get better as we go.
we'll get better as we go. I think we did pretty good for our first dive into the podcasting world.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure.
No promises on the fight part though. That's no promises.
I'd win.
We don't want Mrs. Dimmick to have to watch. Mrs. Dimmick is actually sitting right over there, being my producer. So she's not far. Just in case things got a little wild tonight, she was here to break it up.
She knows karate.
So
She does know karate. She had a very good karate instructor, if I do say so myself.
I wonder who that would have been.
So there, I hope you guys enjoyed that little podcast. Again, we're going to do these once a month, at least to start out, and we'll see how it grows from there. So if you want to be able to join in on the next live broadcast this month, then you can go to the link in my description below. It will take you over to the Powersports Enthusiast podcast channel where you can subscribe. That way you don't miss the notification whenever we go live, and you can join in on the conversation. And again, you can listen to the podcast in audio form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all your main and popular podcasting platforms. It's on there. Still working on getting it on Amazon and a couple other sites, but I am in the process of doing so. So hopefully you'll be able to find it on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And just because you take part in the live broadcast doesn't mean you don't want to tune into the podcast, because I'll be putting little other segments that are in the podcast that I don't film live, such as maybe tech tips and other little tidbits like that. So, guys, your criticism and critique is always welcome, so let me know what you think of episode 1 of Pep Talk Live. And until next time, keep on riding.